Hey guys, it's Aislinn, and in today's video, we're going to be trying out a couple toners and comparing them. So for a while, I've been seeing Sally Beauty's brand. It's like a generic brand, and they basically dupe higher end products that cost more with like the same ingredients and then sell them at a more affordable cost. You guys know one of my favorite deep conditioners is the generic conditioning mask. I love it so much. I still use it to this day. I've gone through like 4 or 5 like liters of that conditioner. I love it so much, and that is the generic brand. So I've been seeing this generic brand toner that they started releasing, and it is basically a dupe for Wella T18. You guys know I love Wella T18. I think it does a great job, and I've used it for years now, almost 10 years. I've been using Wella T18 off and on. I love the toner. I think it's a really, really good option. It's also very affordable. As long as you lift your hair light enough, Wella T18 does an amazing job. In my experience, it's also worked at kind of lifting out a little leftover semi-permanent color like blue or pink. It kind of helps soften that and lift out any excess color you have because it is a permanent toner, which is pretty much the only downside I see to using Wella T18. So this is called Generic Value Products, and they created a line of toners, and right on the packaging it says permanent liquid hair color toner, and it'll tell you what it's compared to. So this says compared to Wella Color Charm, and it's in the shade Icy White T18. So I went ahead and I bought Wella T18, the OG, and then I bought the dupe from the generic brand, and we're gonna compare these and see if they are identical or if there is any difference between the two. This has been on my mind a lot lately, and I finally decided to take the drive to Sally Beauty, pick them up, and compare them for you guys. I know it's not just me, and a lot of you guys are also curious about the generic toner and if it is the same as T18, so we're gonna try them today. I have some tape-in extensions that are a nice platinum shade. This is like a perfect shade to tone. So I have a couple of these. We're gonna be trying T18 right next to the generic brand and see how well it works. The directions are the exact same. Mix it up 1:2 ratio. So 1 part toner, 2 parts of 20 volume developer. Process for 30 minutes. And then on the back of the generic packaging, it also says the ingredients of the generic toner versus the ingredients of the Wella toner. So you can see exactly what ingredients are different between the two. So I'm gonna go ahead and open this up and let's compare the actual bottles inside. Looks identical to Wella T18. Let's go ahead and open this one. Ooh, Wella changed their packaging. I wonder if they changed their packaging because they came out with this one. Very interesting. I feel like they're like, we gotta make it a little bit different now. It's the same amount. You get 1.4 fluid ounces or 42 milliliters. So here are the two next to each other, the comparison. We have Wella over here and the generic brand over here. So I have 2 of the same bowls, but to keep them separated, I am going to mix up the generic brand in the Manic Panic bowl, and then in the bowl that doesn't have a logo on it, this one will be the legit Wella T18. I also have my scale, so I can make sure I have the exact same measurements with the product versus the developer. I don't want to mix one at an unequal ratio. I also have the same exact brushes that I'm going to be using. So let's go ahead and mix up the Wella T18 one first. Starting off at 0 grams, we're going to go in with the Wella T18 first. Okay, I don't need much because I'm not doing a big test strand. Okay, we're going to leave it at 2 grams. So because we did 2 grams of the color, we're gonna need to do 4 grams of 20 volume. Okay, let's go ahead and dump in the 20 volume, and we just want this to be 6. Okay, there's 6. So we did 2 grams of color, 4 grams of developer. We're gonna do the same thing with the generic brand. Okay, so here we have the setup. We have the Wella over here, the generic over here. I'm gonna mix these up and we can start applying. So right off the bat, they smell the exact same, like they just smell like the Wella T18, like permanent toner smell, but they do look a little bit different. The generic one has more of a yellow tint to it than the Wella T18. The Wella T18 just looks more like a beigey color, and the generic one has like a very strong yellow tone to it. So let's go ahead and start applying these. We're going in with the generic brand first. Make sure and saturate this. I'm gonna go ahead and apply the Wella T18. I don't wanna take too much of a time lapse in between the two. I wanna make sure we apply the color at like the same time. I don't want one to process for longer than the other. So I'm trying to go in at the exact same time and not let a lot of time lapse. All right, we have both strands completely saturated. I'm gonna set a timer for 30 minutes. I'm gonna wash these and put conditioner on them, dry them, and I will be back to see if there is any difference between the two colors. I don't think there's going to be a difference, but there could be. We'll have to wait and see. So I just want to show you guys during the processing time, I could see those violet tones really showing up in the Wella T18 swatch versus the generic swatch. I couldn't see those violet tones coming through. So here is the Wella T18 and here's the generic. You just can't see as many of those. And then here is even further into the processing time, you can really see those purple undertones, and the generic brand does not have those. All right, we are back. I just washed and blow dried these swatches. I just want to say real quick, I wound up leaving the toner on for 15 minutes instead of 30. I remembered I applied it on dry hair, and applying it on dry hair versus damp hair is going to be different. If I applied this on damp hair, I would have left it for 30 minutes because it dilutes the product a little bit. But because I did it on dry hair, I did not want to leave it for the full 30 minutes. So I just cut the processing time in half and did 15 minutes. So I am actually pretty surprised there is a difference, okay? Let me show you the swatches, and I'll also show you on the vlogging camera because I don't know if you'll be able to see it like in this camera. This one over here is Wella T18. This one is the generic brand. They're very similar. Like, I mean, you probably wouldn't know the difference if somebody switched it out on you. Because I did this on like a nice platinum swatch, they look very similar, but I feel like if you had a lot of yellow in your hair, you might notice it a little bit more. The Wella T18 swatch, which is this one right here, has more of that purpley silver hue to it. The generic brand also has a silver hue, but it doesn't have as many of those strong purple undertones as the Wella T18 does. I kind of see a little bit of like greeny blue in this one compared to the strong violet tone in that one. Very similar. I'm talking about very slight hue differentiations between the two. They are very similar. They're just a tiny bit different. The violet in the Wella T18 really helps to cancel out those yellow tones that are left in the hair. And by not having as many of them, like I can kind of see in the generic, there's not as many of the violet tones. It might not cancel out as many of those yellow tones, so you're gonna be left with a little bit more of a different tone, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. You might just be left with a little bit of a different outcome. They are very similar, but I like the Wella T18 better. I like seeing those violet, strong undertones. I think it works really well at canceling out those yellow tones that are left in the hair. They're very similar. If I put them next to each other like this and make it look like one swatch, they don't look that different, but I can see the difference. Let me grab my vlogging camera and show you. Here are the swatches on my desk. This one is Wella T18. This one is the generic, and I definitely feel like you guys can tell the little tiny tone difference between the two. Remember, this is the Wella T18, and you can see a little bit more of those violet hues. This one is a generic, and it kind of has more of a greeny blue undertone. I definitely do feel like there is a difference between the two. It's very slight, but honestly, I would stick with the Wella T18. I just think it looks a little bit better. Also, the fade out is beautiful. Seeing a little bit less of those purple undertones in this one makes me a little bit more nervous to use this if I had super yellow hair. You can especially see the difference on the ends of these swatches. Let me move them up for you. The ends are very porous, and so they grab color a lot more than up there by the root. So you can see this one is a lot more purpley. This one kind of has like a greeny gray hue to it. I hope you guys can see what I'm seeing in real life on camera. I think you can. Here are the three swatches next to each other. Wella T18, before we toned, and the generic brand. I feel like having it next to the yellow, you can kind of see the violet undertones a little bit more. Very similar, but if your hair is any more yellow than this, I feel like this would look even more different on your hair. Because this is so light, they look very similar, but the more yellow tones you have, the better this is going to do at canceling out those yellow tones with that deep violet. But since this doesn't have as much as that deep violet, if you're any more yellow than this, you might see a little bit more of that blue and green show up, and not as much of that warmth being canceled out. So the generic toner retails for $6.99, and the Wella T18 retails for $8.49. It's a $1.50 difference. It's really not that much more to pay. If you are looking to buy toner, I would just stick with the Wella T18 and just spend the extra $1.50. If they're out of the Wella T18 and you're in a pinch and they do have the generic brand, it's not that big of a difference. Like, honestly, it's really not that noticeable. So I mean, you could give it a try, but if they're both in stock, I would just stick with the Wella T18. I just like the tone of it a little bit more than the generic brand. Don't get me wrong though, I still love the generic brand. I love that they replicate products at more of an affordable price, especially with like the styling products, shampoo, conditioner. Those are a much greater value for your money because they are priced a lot cheaper. I will leave a link to both of these toners in the description down below. I will also leave a link to my favorite generic conditioner that I talk about all the time, and I love it. Oh, I love that stuff. It's so good and thick and it smells good. So I'll leave a link to those 3 products in the description down below for you guys. That is all for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to check out my Instagram. The link to that is in the description down below. I post way more of my everyday life on there. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I love you guys so much. And until next time, guys, stay weird. Bye.